This video is being recorded during the WGA and SAG strike. I'm in support of all writers and actors asking for fair pay. These TV shows would not be possible without their hard work. A way to donate to their cause is in the description below. Hello everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat, and oh my goodness, I say this every week, but we just had one of the best episodes of the series, and maybe some of the best Star Wars we've had in a very, very long time. Not to say we have not gotten good Star Wars, but this, I was smiling the entire episode. And it was what was needed to move on. And I think for all of us to move on as a fandom with these amazing characters. So go ahead and get into it. As always, spoilers. I haven't really been saying that for the last couple videos, but it is a review, so you kind of expect spoilers. So I apologize for not saying that in the last couple videos, but you live, you learn. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoy. First, I really, really, really want to focus on Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds. That's what I'm going to talk about most this episode, and then we'll get into tiny parts about the New Republic and, a couple of things that I was correct about. But let's start with Ahsoka. Ariana Greenblatt, oh my god, I was shocked that it was her. Immediately from her voice, I recognized it. She's been in everything. She was in my favorite Adam Driver film, 65. Earlier this year, she played Koa, the young girl that Mills saves. I really need to do a 65 video because it's just one of my favorite movies. Anyway, not to derail that. She also played young Gamora in Infinity War. And she was on a couple of TV shows before she even had that big Marvel debut. So she has been in Marvel and Star Wars, which is just absolutely amazing. And she killed it in this role. I can't even think of who would have done it better. Her voice, the way she holds herself, she is such a talented young actor. She is one of the best young actors I have seen in a very, very long time that is able to convey such emotion through her eyes and through how she speaks and how she holds herself. And it's very, very phenomenal in what she did in this episode. And I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, it's her. I'm so happy it was her because she's one of my favorite actresses, and to have her there was really, really special. And how she interacted with Hayden Christensen was just amazing. Now, of course, before that, Ahsoka is in the World Between Worlds with Anakin, and Anakin gives her a choice to live or to die. And she has to fight Anakin, which I thought was amazing. Seeing Hayden Christensen back with the blue lightsaber was just like it almost was in, Kenobi and stuff. And it was amazing. And he gets the floor beneath her, and she drops. And oh my god, I was not expecting what happened next to where we got to see clones. And I was already pretty emotional by this point. I was like, there's no way that we're actually getting a full-on, Clone Wars live action scene, which we haven't had since like 2005. Even then. And it's her first battle, or her first mission with Anakin. And she asks him, why are we here? This is the Clone Wars. And Anakin says, yeah, no kidding. And you just immediately get transported back to their original banter and to that relationship that was so special between them, that father-daughter relationship. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. And they run in, a whole bunch of clones are dying around them. And then we get, later in the mission, we see Ahsoka sitting with a clone. Now, I haven't seen many people talk about this, but this scene is really special to me. I am a huge fan of the clones. My favorite's Cody. And their personalities are so different, and that's why I love the Bad Batch as well. but they have so much feeling. They're not just robots compared to the robots we see in Star Wars. They're a little bit above robots in that sense because they have such a personality and they're not by their cloning and not by their programming. But people still see them as that. And I think that's something that George captured perfectly with the clones. But we see Ahsoka sitting there with one of the clones, and it's almost like she's calling upon the Force to help him and to stay with him. And I was getting emotional. I mean, I'm even getting emotional talking about it because that was Ahsoka's character. She cared so deeply about the clones, even from that final stand. She refused to kill them. Refused. She said, I will not be the one to kill them. That will be their own choice. And, you know, not really their own choice, but it will not be on her hands. And, whew, yeah. Like, that's why Ahsoka is so special to me as well. And one of my favorite characters in Star Wars because she cares so deeply about the clones and her relationships, her attachment, and holding his hand, and he brings his hand atop of hers to reassure her that he's okay. And there were no words said between them. This is why I think Dave Filoni is one of the best writers and directors out there right now, and that could be up for debate. But his visual storytelling with no words, and that you even see this in his Clone Wars series, in The Mandalorian, somewhat in The Mandalorian, and also Tales of the Jedi, especially Tales of the Jedi. You have these scenes where these characters are not saying anything, but they're conveying so much with their body language and their physical emotion that you already know how the character feels without them saying, "Oh, I'm sad. I wish you didn't run in there. I wish I would have been better." You already can feel so much guilt that Ahsoka has just by her closing her eyes and opening them again and sending the Force down upon this clone. And to me, that's cinema. That's where it's at. And people watching this are probably like, this weirdo is getting emotional over a Star Wars TV show and saying it's the best thing that might have been ever written. And I don't think that, but it's very close to where how much I feel in these episodes when these characters are saying absolutely nothing. Or when one character is saying something and the other character is completely silent. It's some of the best storytelling that I've seen in a bit. Yeah. So that scene was amazing. And then Anakin calls her over and she's blaming herself. And in Anakin fashion, which I also don't see a lot of people talking about, is he just completely diffuses the situation, but also makes her more mad. But Anakin's very much like he doesn't want to talk about his feelings. And that's also part of the problem of why he, turns to the dark side. Shocker. But how he says, do you even want a Padawan? Or, it's not so easy. And you already feel that banter back again. But that was so much Anakin in the Clone Wars. He didn't really take time to ask Ahsoka how she was feeling or ask himself how he was feeling because Obi-Wan never did that. No shade to Obi-Wan. I love you. But just there's that cycle, and Ahsoka needs to stop that cycle, and she realizes that, but she thinks that she can't. She thinks that her legacy will be who her master was, one of death and destruction. And Anakin tells her, you can't stop fighting. You can't. People will die under you, and that will affect you. But you have to live with it, and you have to make better decisions and learn from that. And Ahsoka asks, what if I want to stop fighting? And he says, then you'll die. And that scene was really powerful to me as well. I'm gonna derail it just a tiny bit, as get pretty personal here. So, in only the 10-minute mark, I'm so sorry. But as someone who has struggled with depression and is still struggling to this day, I'm a lot better. I'm in therapy, which is great. Talk about your feelings. Don't be an Anakin. Talk about it with people and find your support. But I definitely did not always have that support, or I didn't seek out that support, which was a problem for me. And I struggled with depression, and I had those moments of, what if I want to stop fighting? In better words, what if I want to stop living, right? Which, that's dark. I never got to that place. But everyone gets those thoughts, no matter if you identify it as depression or just through your daily life. What are we all living for? What is our legacy that we're going to leave on this world? And Anakin puts it perfectly to her: then you'll die. Then you will have given up the fight. And you can't do that. You have to keep going. At least that's how I saw it. And then you'll die, right? Was poetic in a sense of, then all these people would have died for nothing. You can't continue the fight on to maybe one day have a better future. And I think that's what was really important for Ahsoka to learn, that she needs to fight the fight, but do it for the right reasons, and be a keeper of the peace and not a warrior, as she was once trained, but to use that knowledge and to help whoever's out there. So anyway, off the personal note, I just found that was a really, really great scene. And I just got chills when you have, then you'll die. And then Anakin turns away and walks with the clones. And he's walking. And then there's like dust. And then you see Darth Vader's silhouette with the red lightsaber with no clones. And then it goes back to Anakin. And Ahsoka's face of just fear and regret is just one of the best scenes I have ever seen in a television show. And it conveys such emotion. As I was saying, it tells the audience her regret, and that technically she did stop fighting. She left the Jedi Order, and she still, to this day, blames herself for Anakin's fall because she left. Now, she isn't entirely wrong. It partly was her fault that Anakin turned to the dark side. That was the first seed planted, because then Palpatine had more of a grip on him. But it was also Obi-Wan, and there's no Padme slander. I really don't think it was her fault. I think she did the best that she could, but Anakin was destined to fall anyway. I think that's the whole point of George's story, is Anakin's going to fall no matter how much help or how much love he gets, because of the people he wants to protect, which included Ahsoka, and he failed at that. So her blaming herself for his fault isn't entirely wrong, but she blames herself entirely, which is definitely wrong. There were a lot of factors, and specifically Palpatine, that played into that role in Anakin's life. But that was one of the hardest scenes that has ever been put in Star Wars. And it's always a Darth Vader scene. Always. They can never go wrong with Darth Vader. And that's just honestly where it's at. Now, me saying that, does that mean we want a rated R Darth Vader series? No, that's stupid. Don't do that. Do it if it's good, but it's not needed. I think I'm kind of done with Vader. I love him. I just said that everything he's in is really, really good. But can we just, move on? out of like the OT section, which we're starting to with Ahsoka. We're starting to get into the sequels. Very, very exciting. But also, I'm really excited for Acolyte, which takes place before the Phantom Menace. And I will talk about that section in a later video just because I still want to talk about a lot of stuff. So that transition was amazing. Then we get transported to the Siege of Mandalore. And oh my gosh, we get to see the Maul Mandalorians with the painted red armor, which I love. I love that design. I'm so happy we got to see it in live action. And then we got to see Rex, played by Tamora Morrison. Oh my gosh, the Return of the King. Like, he's back. I'm so glad they called him back. I was talking with someone. If they didn't, it's almost kind of like it'd be really surprising if they didn't ask him. And a lot of times these contracts don't always work out. And the actors they're too expensive or whatever. And I'm like positive that most of the budget of this show went towards the CGI and Hayden Christensen reprising his role, because he did a lot of acting. So I do think that's also a factor in it, but the fact that he was back, and it felt so great, especially what he said in that interview about Boba Fett and not knowing if he's returning or not, or they didn't call him back for Mando season 3, which like makes me really sad because Boba Fett's also one of my favorite characters. I have his helmet, not to brag, but having him in the Rex, well, I don't know if it was him, but having him voice Rex, it just felt so special, and it felt like he was back and got the opportunity that he deserved always. And I love Bradley D. Baker, who voices all of the clones, which is a feat in and of itself. Honestly, that's crazy to me. And I love the Bad Batch, so already number one in my book. But having Tamora Morrison and just feeling his presence there was just so special to what that was. So amazing. Loved seeing Rex. And then we get, Anakin saying, I don't remember this battle because it's the Siege of Mandalore. And, of course, that takes place during Season 7. So it's actually right before Anakin turns to the dark side, which is very bittersweet when he says he doesn't remember this battle, because he was already on his way to turning to the dark side, because Obi-Wan had already left at that time. So him having this conversation and says, I'm very proud of you, this was a good battle won, just like literal chills because of what happened in that battle, that Maul fight, and how Maul warned her about everything. And she didn't listen because she still felt that there was some good in Anakin. And him coming back to that moment and seeing it, and Ahsoka already knowing what had happened, it definitely makes her view herself in a harsher light, because if she had heeded Maul's word, could she have gone to Mustafar and battled him? Could she have won? Could she have saved Obi-Wan? Could she have saved Padme, her friend? Like, oh my gosh. And like, not many people took that away from it, but that's kind of how I felt and how special it was for him to be there. And then she asked, what my legacy will be one of death and destruction, just like you. And, Anakin says, is that what you think of me? And she's like, Anakin, you are more powerful and more dangerous than anyone could have ever understood. And in Anakin fashion, he says, is that what this is about? Yes, Anakin, it's about your turn to the dark side. Like, Sir, you have killed thousands of people. Like, yes, this is about your turn to the dark side. So Anakin still says you have learned nothing. And then ignites his red Darth Vader lightsaber, and it's the Anakin that was like Darth Vader, like on Mustafar, but without like the Darth Vader like mechanical stuff. So basically, at Anakin's highest power level, to put it in lightly, him is Vader without the mechanical, heavy, chunky stuff. So he was like 10 times more powerful. And I saw hints of Anakin's betrayal in there. And oh my gosh. Like, you already know me with scores and the music in Star Wars, but having those like two notes on the violins as he ignited his lightsaber. Oh my god. Literal chills, and I've said that like what, 4 times this episode. Crazy, and I loved it. So Anakin kicks her back to the world between worlds. Then we get older Ahsoka, and they fight, and Ahsoka takes Anakin's red lightsaber and holds it up to him. And she has Sith eyes. Oh my god. Like, Dave Filoni, you madman. Like, did you really think this was gonna go well? And oh my god, I'm so glad he did it, because it did. And she has Sith eyes, and it almost looks like she's gonna strike him down. And she doesn't. She throws it away. She gives it up. Because she doesn't want to be like her master. She doesn't want to be like the people she has fought. She is better, and she knows who she is. And that line, when she throws it, and she goes right into his face, and says, "I want to live," is just so powerful and so needed for Ahsoka's character. And for Anakin, his Sith eyes and his red eyes start to fade out, and he comes back within himself and becomes the Anakin that we love and know. And it also represents Anakin was very much the chosen one. Very much was. He had so much light and so much dark within him, and he truly was the balance in the Force. And I think this also reinstates Dave Filoni's point of he really was kind of the most powerful Jedi. And Jedi in the sense of Force user. I don't think Jedi is the right word, but he really was the most powerful Force user. And his experiences with light and with the dark made him the chosen one. And I think a lot of people miss that in his characterization and what he gives to that. And there were so many Ahsoka and Luke parallels. And with Luke, he wanted to save his father, right? I mean, Ahsoka in the first, in the World Between Worlds, she's like, "I will not fight you." And then Anakin says, "I've heard that before," which just made me smile. Like, because Luke says that. Luke says that in Return of the Jedi. He says, "I will not fight you, Father." And then we get the throwback with Ahsoka throwing his red lightsaber, and Anakin threw his lightsaber. Luke threw his lightsaber away, saying, "I will not fight you, Father." And Ahsoka's, "I will not kill you, my master." And Luke did it to save his father, but Ahsoka does it to save herself. And that's just beautiful. Like, that's amazing. Anakin's already been saved, so now Anakin's trying to save Ahsoka. It's just, these two characters just... There's just really something special that we have here. And in this episode, there was just so much emotion that you could feel. And like I said, I've said that like 8 times already. But It was really, really well done. Then Anakin goes away. Goodbye, Anakin. But Ahsoka's alive, which is great. I kind of went back on me saying Ahsoka should die in the last episode. Let's just don't clip that. Like, she's alive. Like her, like, have her stay alive. She's fine. Then we get Ahsoka the White, and of course Hera and all that to save them. And Ahsoka in the White, we could just already see she's so changed. She is back to her snippy self. And just a weight is lifted off her shoulders. And it's truly like she's let the Force in. And she's let attachment in. And even then when Hu Yang, tells her everything and she's like, Jason's here. Like even her voice, it sounds like, oh, she's like actually excited about something for once in her life. And then she goes out there and she hugs Jason and she's smiling at him. And oh my God, you just already feel a shift in her demeanor. And Rosario Dawson, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with the people bagging on your acting and bagging on, your monotone voice. You're amazing. We love you. That was all purposeful. And I think a lot of us, after a while, we were like, okay, this is purposeful because we're starting to see more with like her character and actually how it relates to her character. But just to already see the fullness in herself is amazing. So then she finds out what happened with Sabine, blah, 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 blah. And then her plan is to go with the Purgles. And of course, I was just like, yes, love the Purgles. Let's go get some space whales. So she goes out there and she already seems like, even in the ship, she just seems so excited and just so enraptured by the Purgles and just looking around and just finding the joy and the beauty in these mystical creatures. And it was just something so beautiful about that storytelling and about what she was giving to that. And it was just absolutely amazing that she goes out on the ship and she's standing there. The score went so hard when she was out there with the Purgles and she had her hand out and everything. It was no words were said. Just another instance of it was one of the best scenes that I've seen in Star Wars. It was beautiful. And of course they land on the Purgle, inside the Purgle, on its mouth. I did not think that they were going to land inside of it, but I guess they got to get to where they're going. And the fact that the Purgles are helping them and it's so important is really, really special. And they go. And yeah, next episode, definitely we're seeing Thrawn. Do you want to talk about the New Republic super, super quickly, and then I'll get into tweets. This might be a bit of a longer video, but I digress. So, New Republic, Hera and Carson go against orders. I love Carson. Oh my gosh. Like, best character. I love him so, so much. Rangers of the New Republic with him in it. Please, I need it. And just Carson just going along with what, Hera's antics and all of that just like makes me really, really happy. The New Republic wants to strip Hera of her general title and Carson of his rank, which is laughable because that honestly shows us how like desperate the New Republic is to like really keep in line their soldiers, and how laughable it is that even Mon Mothma was like, well, do you have Morgan Elizabeth in custody? And they were like, no. Well, do you have anything to tell us, like, where the Imperial remnant are? And Hera was like, no. And she's like, well, I can't do anything. It's like, but that makes no sense. Like, what? So they needed Ahsoka to go testify for Hera that her actions were good, that she saved her. And Hera's like, I don't care. Nope. Ahsoka's going to go save my children. And it is what it is. We got a Senator Organa drop by Carson. And did I call it? Did I not call it in my predictions for this series? Oh my gosh, that just made me smile. Senator Organa is covering for you, but she can't hold out for long. Yes. So, like I said, I don't know if Billy Lord is up for it, but I wouldn't mind in the Senate scene with Mon Mothma. We have a little background Leia as Bailey Lord, but I won't ask for too much. So I love that. And then Jason can use the Force. We already knew that. Come on. His father is Kanan Jarrus, like my father before me. And the fact that he was integral to the plot was just absolutely amazing. And I was really happy that they actually used him and he wasn't just there to, keep Hera in line and blah, blah, blah. Hera is such a good mother. I never had any doubts about that because of the Ghost Crew, and she basically had like 5 children. But how she doesn't call Jason stupid or tell Jason that he's just hearing things or that he's crazy. She actually takes the time to stand there and listen with him and believe him for a second and really hear him out. And when he says they're over the water, or all of that, Hera goes and says, okay, let's go. I think you're right. And it just shows like how good of a mother she is and how trusting she is, with her own son. And I really do think that her being with the Ghost Crew and her taking care of Ezra, Sabine, and Zeb and Chopper and all of that really, really helped her in parenting Jason and really gave her that opportunity to do it without Kanan. And I hate saying that. But the fact that we got a Kanan Jarrus name drop was that was all I needed. That was all I needed. People saying that, Kanan's going to come back and everything. The voice actor has kind of stated that he's done with Star Wars and he does not want to come back. So I wasn't expecting anything, but they can totally name drop him. And I think that was what was needed. And of course we have the photo in the Ghost. But just absolutely amazing. And yeah, I love Hera and Jason. And I'm loving Jason a lot more. I'm hoping that because the series is so much like a master and apprentice, we're going to have Ahsoka train Sabine, but in the way that she should, and not as a warrior and as a fighter, but as keepers of the peace. And we're going to actually have Ezra come back and train Jason, which just gives me chills because, of course, if you don't already know, Kanan trained Ezra, so then Ezra would train Kanan's son, which is so poetic because in that sense, Kanan should have trained his own son, totally. But Ezra was like a son to him before he had Jason, and Ezra taking on that role and training Jason would just be so special. And I do think that's where it's going to go. And I'll be very happy when it does. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for my review. I am going to talk about a couple tweets that I saw, and then we'll go ahead and finish up. At Saturn Art, Quinn says, today I'm thinking about the moment when Hayden tried to hold tears on Star Wars Celebration stage. He felt loved and appreciated that day, and you can see how much it meant to him to come back to Star Wars. Just look at him. The man deserved the world. And of course, it was the video from Star Wars Celebration this year, and Hayden Christensen on stage, and just everyone cheering for him, and he got really emotional. And all of us watching that video got really, really emotional. And I just kind of wanted to put that tweet out there because I do think this might be the last time we see Hayden Christensen. I could definitely be wrong, and I do hope I'm wrong, but his presence in Star Wars will always remain. And I'm so happy that he's seeing the love now. And my only hope is that the sequel trilogy characters get that much love in 5 to 10 years. I would like it now, but as the prequels were, you got to be patient. And much of us sequel fans are very, very patient. So that just made me really, really smile. At Cody Fandom says, Ahsoka having Sith eyes is a proclamation on establishing the anger and hate she possessed within herself in regard to the guilt and blame she carried for years. Understanding that there was nothing she could have done to prevent Anakin's fall, she felt absolved, choosing to live by letting go. Just beautifully worded. Oh my gosh, Cody, thank you. And yeah, that's basically what I said as well, just typed out a lot better and more cohesive. But her having Sith eyes, that was really, really cool, and something that I never thought we were going to see, and yet when we did see it, it was something beautiful. At Credit and Canon says, cannot stress how impressive it is that Ariana Greenblatt played a young Ahsoka playing an older Ahsoka while having a great chemistry with Hayden Christensen. And Ariana Greenblatt says, he's my Sky Guy. Just, oh my gosh, just absolutely amazing. I will get into let's get into it now. So with all of this, I do want to tackle really quickly on a lot of the hate that I'm seeing about people asking for a live action Clone Wars. You guys already know me. I'm pro animation. People that want a Clone Wars series, I always direct them to the animated series. But I don't always jump to anger when I see those tweets, or at least when I saw the first wave of tweets. I understand where they're coming from. When I would love a series with Ariana Greenblatt, Hayden Christensen, and Tamora Morrison. I really would. And you want that for those actors, right? And because they have such great chemistry together. I don't necessarily agree with the point saying you want the story, because that story's already been produced in animation, and you'd be getting the same exact story. But I see it as, I would love a live-action Clone Wars as well, with those characters, maybe a limited series, but with the actors. The only reason I would want it is because of the actors. But it's not needed. It so is not. People that were... Now, okay, I was watching it with someone who didn't even know the Clone Wars existed. And they were like, well, are they going to do like a Clone Wars series or, something? And I was like, oh, there actually is a Clone Wars series. It's the animated one. And they had no idea that it existed. So I don't know if it will happen or not. I won't be mad either way. I think people need to take it at face value. And there are some people that only like animation. There are some people that only like live action. I am a person that am not a huge fan of live action remakes, and I totally love animation. And as someone who is in the industry, or trying to be in the industry, I should say, it's really important that animation's a valid medium. But also, it's okay if you don't like animation. And I think that should almost kind of be universal. It's okay to not like things and to want live action type of things. But in the same sense, don't completely bash on animation. I would say try it. Try watching the Clone Wars. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's okay. I'm not going to say you have to like it. And if you want a live action series Clone Wars, totally cool. I honestly would love to see those actors in that role again. But saying, oh, I just want it for the story. I want more development on these characters. There is perfectly good, animation right there that tells a pretty good story if you try it out. So those are just my quick little thoughts. I would say just don't get mad at people for immediately jumping to conclusions about certain things. I think they were just really happy to see Hayden Christensen and Ariana Greenblatt and Tamora Morrison back in their characters. At ECK Hearts Ladder says, I gotta say, Ahsoka really is a special show. It's everything I wanted to see out of the continuation of Star Wars Rebels and somehow more. My biggest wish is that they give all the story the time to play out that it deserves. We should only just be starting. I completely agree. The fact that we only have 3 episodes left honestly kind of concerns me. I was telling people, this is episode's 5 the peak. Like, it's where the peak is, and I do think it will start to slow down a lot more these last 3 episodes, and it will be very dialogue heavy and doing a lot of exposition for ourselves. And I think at the end, we're going to see Thrawn coming back in the eye. I think Ahsoka will reach him, but ultimately fail. And I think Thrawn will be coming back. Because that's the whole thing with Mando. And then we have the continuation of the Mando movie. Now, I'm truly not thinking ahead until the WGA and SAG strike ends. I think that's way more important than my Star Wars and what happens with that. And they need to handle that first before we even start thinking about more movies and TV shows. After Ahsoka, it's going to be pretty quiet for a while. It's going to be pretty dead. So I think that I'm not even going to speculate on what's going to happen next, kind of. I'm kind of ending it at Ahsoka. Not the podcast. The podcast is still going. But with content that this Disney is putting out, it's going to be dry for probably a year or so. If we don't end by December, if the strike doesn't get fixed by December, we will not be having new Star Wars for probably the next 2 years. So, I don't know. Companies just need to figure themselves out and pay actors and writers fairly. I think that's where it's at. At Cam Film says, my 2 cents is that they should absolutely resurrect Ranger of the New Republic, but have Paul Sun-Hyung Lee lead it as Carson Teva. He is the best of the New Republic gulp shittos. And yeah, literally what I said before, it needs to happen. And I just want to see more of Carson and more of just Rangers of the New Republic. I think would be really interesting, and more look into the flawed New Republic government. Dan, Star Wars Centralized, says, I had many failures, but you don't have to repeat them as part of my legacy, end quote. Very roundabout way of saying what Yoda said in The Last Jedi, but from an apprentice's point of view. Also a direct contradiction to what Baylan accused her of last episode. There were very much Last Jedi themes in this episode, and I love that. I am indifferent about The Last Jedi. I think I need to do an entire video on that. I can't really talk about my thoughts on here because there are many good things and many bad things that are in that movie. Is it the worst sequel trilogy movie? No, not by a long shot. But does it have its problems? Absolutely, yes. But there are many Last Jedi themes with Master and Apprentice and all of that. And Last Jedi, its entire theme is Master and Apprentice and living on. And our last tweet is at I'm Hector Navarro. Episode 5 was important for Ahsoka's character development, but Hayden Christensen truly shined here. His ability to convey both warmth of Anakin and the rage of Darth Vader elevated the episode and showed his range as an actor. George Lucas really nailed the casting more than 20 years ago. Absolutely. And I don't think Hayden Christensen even knew when he got that role that this would even be possible, that he would be coming back 20 years later after he finished Revenge of the Sith to be welcomed back and to continue this story and end the story of Anakin Skywalker. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If any of you have your thoughts about Ahsoka and use the Bird app, no longer the Bird app, now the X app, tag me in your Ahsoka thoughts and I will read them on the podcast. So, no pressure. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one.